It's a chess program recording on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and my guests today are Professor Ken Regan. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Thank you very much for having me on again.
Great to have you again after.
It's a
Uh,
bright, cold day in November, and the clocks are striking 13 in the chess world.
mhm. And we have also Jim Eat from Eat Foundation. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank
Great.
you, Sasha. Great to be here.
Excellent. And what we would like to obviously talk about is Zinfield Cup. What else? It's a
Yeah.
premier event. It was always the pinnacle of the chess calendar,
Hmm.
and there are no great chances. At least that we have one tournament which was Rapid and Blitz, followed by the classical chess, which started with several draws for first 3 days, I believe, and then all of a sudden. That started to become a premier show with great games. And I think the main contributor to that is Fabiano Caruana, which demonstrates incredible level of chess. He's almost, I would say, he dominates chess world today based on his results, and not only results, but the flow of his, first of all, incredible preparedness as the openings are concerned. Um, Very fluid game, absence of mistakes or any miscalculations of any significance,
Okay.
and just a high quality game. Are we returning to the ways when uh, Fischer dominated the HS or Kasparov, or there is still Carlson effect. So we
Hmm.
cannot talk seriously about Caruana's sort of domination of the chess world while Carlson is still alive, and he is alive from what I understand.
Okay.
Uh, Jim, what do you think about this phenomenon?
Well, I think the Sinkfield Cup is a great tournament. The Sinkfields have done a tremendous job of making St. Louis the mecca of chess in the United States and perhaps the world. These tournaments are amazing, and the field is amazing too, because besides Fabio, Wesley So is also, world caliber. Dominguez is in this tournament right up to the last, so that's only slightly surprising. His results have been very good. So there's a number, and we're almost forgetting about Nakamura, who's also world class. But he picks and chooses his tournaments a little bit more. Fabio's a little bit more active, and I agree with your assessment of his play. It's really uh, outstanding and astounding that he is so consistently good.
Yeah, there was, I think I
Please.
caught a tweet to the effect or reference to something about Wesley So saying it's impossible to prepare against Caruana. I'm not sure I have it right, but
Well, their game was very interesting. It was fairly quick win for uh, it was So had black, and he played 15 b5, which I don't know if you can show us, Ken, but
yeah,
I think the game rapidly deteriorated after that. Um,
yes, I have the game queued up, so I can show
okay,
it. So
yeah,
let's go right into it.
is that
Let's
okay,
let's
Sasha?
do that.
Okay,
So it's obviously the most notable game because what we haven't talked about also is the battle for the last spots in the candidates.
yes,
And this and the London Classic are the main tournaments. And
right.
for several people um, in St. Louis, this is their only chance at it.
Caruana's already clinched, I think.
Right. Caruana and Nakamura are there. So it's a
Right,
question of Wesley So or Lenier Dominguez
right.
can join them. And that is okay. So now do you see Caruana So?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll go into this game. Um, so question is, what do you play against D4? The Nimzo is supposed to be reliable, but the players soon take this Nimzo into quite
You-
aggressive territory.
But Ken, I also wanted to point out that I was playing the Nimzo all my life, and people started playing NF3 or G3 and kind of avoiding it.
Yeah.
Now they're playing it NC3 again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think they've come up with some improvements. But C5 is not something that I would play. I would play B6.
D6 or D5, D6. Okay.
I'd play B6.
Oh, B6. Oh, yeah, I would
Yeah.
play B6 too. Yes.
Yeah, I would be in kettle right away.
B6. One of those is bad. I think you allow Queen A4 check. There's some cases you don't want to allow it. So now D5 is okay because the bishop on B4 is defended, and White isn't coming with a knight to E5 anyway. So Black decides to preserve the bishop.
Interesting.
One of the ideas of White's knight E2 was that Black cannot double the pawns by taking on C3. But now Black has to spring into action to recover the pawn that White has taken and prevent White from erecting a complete barrier on the queen side with B4. So you start by taking that pawn. Now White can't play B4 effectively. And it is worth pointing out, no, that's fine. Okay, so now we play. And as I said, now this is going to get very exciting with open lines.
Yeah.
So Black allowed the attack on the rook because Black can now play bishop b7 at some point to attack White's queen, but White forestalls this by saving the pawn and playing it hard into Black's position. White would not want to take on b6 because that would just open a whole host of lines. So now Black plays. Now I have not looked to see how far all of this is book. It is, however, though, evaluated by the engine as White being a pawn ahead already. So if this is preparation, it needs to be queried. Anyway, Black captured on C3, which was unnecessary.
Yeah.
So the engine says, well, you should take this, allow White to capture this pawn. And if you just look at the assessment here, now your pieces aren't so well placed. You have to worry about White playing b4, attacking the bishop.
Right.
But you can play some moves, and if White plays b4, then you can break out with b5, and you'll get compensation for the pawn with your open lines. Okay, so that's apparently how Black has to play. But Black, fearing the attack on the bishop, decided to capture on c3 right away. And this is just too complicit. Now White has the two bishops, a lead in development.
Yeah.
Okay, so both players can castle, but Black still has to catch up in development a bit. However, Black does not castle. Black attacks. So I'm sure you wrote Chess for Dummies, right? And Chess for Dummies, don't attack with your pawns until you're developed. Don't attack when you're behind in development.
Castle. All right.
Yeah. Things like this. So now how does White punish that pawn move? This was an unnecessary move. And I think that was one of the move you talked about at the beginning. So, but one does have to say, though, that maybe Black's position is just wrong, because for all we can criticize that move, after a little bit more reflection, it is the computer's top move. And
no kidding.
Yes, and Black can't castle here because White has too much firepower on the king side. So yeah, you begin by softening Black up. So this knight doesn't really have anywhere to go. Let's just play a normal move.
Right.
And then now, oh, it's worse. It's even worse for Black than I thought.
Oh,
I was thinking that I was going to get pressure on f6.
B4,
There's this as well.
Oh, it's worse than I thought too.
But yeah. I don't know why. I think I've confused the computer for some reason. It's giving -10. for black. I'm sure that I think I've confused the computer, but anyway.
Oh, so
So
B5 is
yes,
which I criticized in my brief analysis, and it was like I didn't realize how bad it was.
yeah, it's just, it really is needs to be researched how bad it was. Now maybe black is hoping to escape into an end game. That would be fine, but white is not going to oblige. Now this is attacking the knight and cutting off black's king from castling.
Right.
Black just has no good way to deal with it. So black plays e5. Maybe black was counting on this move again, hoping for the trade of queens.
Oh,
But this must have been what Wesley So overlooked. So this is
Right.
the star move. And it is true that if white doesn't have that, then the other moves that white can play allow black to escape into an endgame, like knight e4, trade queens, and play king e7. White will win a pawn, but black will at least have survived. The second best move for white is to play here and just play it as a straight sacrifice. Knight e4 coming into d6 check, and even though black will have an extra piece, black probably won't survive.
Right.
But the star move is that white can take on f7. And now taking with the queen loses the protection of the knight.
right,
So black has to take with the king.
right.
And
Queen
then queen c7 check. And now again, same problem. Queen e7 is the move you'd want to play, but it loses protection of the knight. So if you don't play queen e7,
King
you've
G6.
got a, well, king g6. You can run with the king, but then this is, you're losing the knight and maybe losing your queen too.
Yeah, it's over, right?
Yes.
Or not over, but terrible.
Yeah, so rook d6. So in fact, black had to restore queen e7. And now we just say black is busted. We don't care what the computer evaluation is.
Right.
Black is down a pawn, can't castle. Black has other weaknesses. White dominates the center. This is just bust. So and the funny thing is, the move you want to make, attacking white's queen, developing a piece, is another pawn disadvantage according to the computer. Okay, so black does what you want, but now black is attacking with one piece, white is attacking with three and could be four. So we know how this game's gonna end.
Ouch.
Yes, and this is where So gave up. So
What's it been called?
yeah, I mean, let's see this move. Oh, knight e7 check is happening, and knight d5 winning the queen. So you have to play rook e8 to stop that, and then knight d6 is more trouble. So, yeah, queen c4 check, and we're gonna win.
So an early collapse by So, and this is a game that So had to at least draw.
Right. Yes. So the problem for Wesley So is that although he's tied for first place, he's played 8 games. He's only +1.
He's got his rest.
So he will be out unless Caruana and Dominguez Perez both lose. And the pairings are Caruana versus Rapport and Dominguez Perez at black against Arodian. And Aronian is not in the picture. He could be in the picture, though, to catch up with Dominguez Perez with a win.
Aronian is capable of doing that.
Sure, of course.
He is.
Another very good player that's just an afterthought in the field. It's amazing how strong the field is.
Yeah. It is very unfortunate that Jean-Christophe Duda had to withdraw into illness. I don't know if it's been clarified what the illness was, but
yeah, that's one of the things about the Sinquefield Cup is they usually invite someone like Duda, and so the U.S. players get to play someone who's world class, from another country, and so it's usually not just U.S. players. It's usually somebody like Carlsen or Duda or somebody very, very strong.
Yeah, round 8 was the only round in which the U.S. players all played the non-U.S. players. and all 4 games were drawn.
And the tournament started out with a bunch of draws too,
Yes.
and then it got people started going for blood.
Yeah. In the second round, supposedly there were winning chances, distinct winning chances in 2 of the games.
Mhm.
But nothing like that. So Sinkfield Cup, of course, the marquee event leading that. But there have been other happenings in the chess world. I don't know if we want to go into them.
I'd
Sure.
like to bring up one. I noticed, and I don't remember who accused him, but Nakamura was accused of cheating. And I
Yes.
figured you would be all over it.
Kramnik, by the way.
By Kramnik, okay.
By
Kramnik.
Kramnik.
So-
And, he's very methodical to provide the proof. He's not scared of lawsuits or anything like that. And he has a great tribune in program Levitov Chess. And
Yeah.
he's very prolific there. So it's kind of interesting development.
And I figured Ken would be the perfect person to ask about it.
Yes,
Absolutely.
so I that has occupied quite a bit of my time over Thanksgiving and before. So, so what do I want to say about it? Well, I must confess that there's more digging I still have to do before I write a thorough article. But I did test the games, and there are 2 ways of doing my test. On the official way, the Z-scores that I get for Nakamura are only slightly positive. Actually, one of them is even negative. And
by that you mean there's no evidence of cheating.
there's no evidence of cheating. It's and then if you look at some contingent factors, then his incredibly high score would actually become expected. So the most arresting number that I get is that the difference in the quality measure from Nakamura to his opponents is 600 ELO, not even more than 600 ELO in some of my measurements, not the 300 or so ELO difference in the ratings, or 400 if you use the chess.com ratings. So people have done the binomial analyses predicated on 300, 400 difference. But I can measure the quality directly of the moves on the board. And the difference doesn't matter. There's a point of statistical practice where it's selection bias if you cut off exactly the 46 games in the streak. Nakamura played 6. The player that Nakamura was playing at the end of his streak was the Turkish prodigy Yahiz Khan Erdogmas. And Nakamura and Erdogmas played 6 more games, of which Nakamura lost 2. And so the total number of games that I tested is 52, the streak plus 6 more games, because it's minimally appropriate to cut off at a player. Okay. There's the question of whether I should take all games that Nakamura played in that day, interpreting day as the interval between sleeping. So if I can't just go by the Pacific time timestamps of the games.
Right.
And then another question is, before the streak began, Nakamura played a different player, but then before that player, he played a couple of the players from the streak again. So should I take the entire interval of games over which Nakamura faced the 6 opponents who were in his streak? That's another statistical choice question. But regardless, the rating difference figure is robust. Okay, doesn't matter how you break or cut off the streak. It's a 500 to 600 point rating difference. Now, let me explain something else. I'll share screen again. So I'm not just saying, so I'm saying, first of all, that in the official methodology that I use, the Z-scores I get are completely normal. There are a couple of alternative methodologies, and when I combine them, I can get Nakamura right at the 2.0 level, which is still the top of the normal range for the 52 games, and a little bit over it if I cherry pick to the 46 games. But the rating difference thing is happens regardless. So now what I'm showing on my screen is my curve of the fall off in ELO quality with the time control. This curve shows the 0 point as being game 165. So 165 minutes to reach turn 60. With the old Bundesliga time control and the British League time control, the FIDE standard time control would be 150 points. And that doesn't make a lot of difference. So 90 minutes for 40 moves, 30 minutes for the rest of the game is 120. Plus you have a 30-second increment per move to game 60 that gives you an extra 30 minutes. So that's how I get 150. Weichensee and the recent Isle of Man Swiss in the men's section had what I reckoned as 195 minutes. So that's a little above here. So the 0 point being midway between means the differences either way don't matter too much.
Right.
The other data points I have come from the in-person World Rapid and Blitz Championship, because I'm not using online chess to calibrate this curve. So game 15 plus 10-second increment amounts to 25 minutes to reach turn 60. And game 3 minutes plus 2-second increment amounts to 5 minutes to reach turn 60. And that point I found is fairly also reflective of Blitz played old style, 5 minutes for the game, 5 plus 0. So I use these points as linchpins. The red or orange curves are the ones that matter. There's something else mathematical going on in this diagram, which gives internal confidence that it's basically correct. Okay. So now the question is, can I apply this to the 3-minute blitz that that was used in these games, and that importantly also was used for the some of the critical games played in 2020 by Neiman in my report on the Neiman case. So if you look for the 3-second point on this orange curve, that's 717. I use 715 to round it. ELO difference. This is from the FIDE standard rating. Okay, so Hikaru is 2778 standard. So you subtract 715, you get 2063. Okay, my IPR measurements for Nakamura are all in the range 2050 to 2200, and they're really concentrated in the lower half of that range. So they're really concentrated on the interval from like 2075 to 2130. Okay, so he's playing about 50 or so ELO above his expectation based on the theory of this curve for 3-minute blitz. By the way, if I use my standards for 5-minute blitz, then the highest Z-score I get is 0.39, and most of them are negative. So if I treated this as the same settings as standard 5-minute blitz, then there's absolutely nothing. There's less than nothing in Hikaru's play. So the slight bumps I'm getting are all from the difference, trying to account the difference in quality between 3-minute and 5-minute blitz. So if you want to argue Hikaru played with advantage, his advantage is completely limited to the idea if he would have the 2-second increment versus not having it for after getting 3 minutes on his clock. So, however, but it's nevertheless important to me to judge how accurate this curve is. Okay. I mean, there are error bars even associated with these hard and fast data points. The error bars are plus or minus 25. So I have to allow for some wiggle in how I'm regarding this curve. But like I said, the curve is accurate to within 50 or so ELO for his performance over these games. Now, his opponents, I measure their IPRs their ratings in the range 1450 to 1550 for the most part.
Wow.
So if I take 1500 and add 715, that would be what you would expect of a player rated 2215. Okay. Well, his opponents are substantially higher rated than 2215. That difference is the amount by which they played worse than normal against Hikaru. And the larger riddle is, why do Hikaru's opponents play worse than normal? So I am quoted in an article that was published in the UK Independent, a newspaper, overnight, as saying that Nakamura creates a stickier wicket for his opponents. And this goes into the other experimental area of my program, where I'm trying to quantify the idea of a critical position and how much you stand to lose in a position. So
But Ken, a stickier wicket is much more appreciated in England than here.
Well, yes, but it was a UK publication.
Yes.
So that's the that is, I think, the explanation of why Hikaru wins Title Tuesday for as much as he done. In terms of my metrics, I do, of course, monitor the Title Tuesday tournaments every week. I even did this week's. I don't want to show the link. It's a private link on the show.
Sure.
I do want to point out one other thing, though. There is a person who has published a second analysis, and this is the statistician, is a PhD student in Switzerland. He also spent time at Oxford recently, named Dorian Quelli. Quelle, a German word.
Seen that name.
So we can call him Quelli if we want, I guess, but Quella is the proper pronunciation of his last name. So let me show this on my screen. Oops, where am I? Here I am. Actually, you're still seeing my rating time curve.
Yes.
Oh no, it just reverted. Good. Okay, so now present again, share screen, and this time I'll show just his tab here. Okay, so this is analysis.
I'm not seeing it, Ken.
Okay.
Oh, now I am.
Now I am, yeah. Cheaters and where to find them. I don't like his choice of title, because this is really a negative result. Okay. So I've forgotten to say it. We've been discussing this privately. I've forgotten to mention that. But it's reasonable methodology. Now, what's important to say here is he's testing something about the bulk population. So what he's testing is not an assertion that any one player cheated. Okay, my work is at the detail level of individual players. This is not what he's doing.
Okay.
What he's doing is he's dressing Kramnik's allegation, an allegation made by others, that a lot of players cheat on Title Tuesday. And what he does is he does a differential analysis. What he's saying, if people are cheating regularly on chess.com to inflate their rating, even apart from Title Tuesday, okay, then that should show as an inflation in their chess.com ratings that is not mirrored by an inflation in their standard chess ratings. In order to do this, he had to measure the prediction accuracy of using FIDE ratings instead of chess.com ratings. Okay, so that's what's going on in this window here. Okay. So rating calibration, chess.com versus FIDE ratings for online games. Now, he does find some bias and skew, and I haven't gotten to the bottom of this to see if it's the same as what I found. The Jeff Sonas argument is involved here. But nevertheless, what he says, unsurprisingly, chess.com's ratings are the most accurate for predicting the results of games on chess.com. But what he says, though, is that the FIDE ratings are close enough to be comparable. And they're roughly comparable. It's a great sign that they're comparable because it enables his differential analysis. Okay, so he's using the the FIDE ratings, where you presume that people have not been able to cheat to inflate their FIDE ratings, and see how that affects the results of the entire population. And what he says is that there's only a slight effect, and in fact, you actually get that the error actually drops. So in no condition do we find any evidence of cheating. There is no large-scale phenomenon of people cheating on chess.com and inflating their ratings relative to FIDE ratings. Okay. So he says, therefore, that the allegations of pervasive and consistent computer-assisted cheating do not hold water. Okay.
Interesting.
This is independent analysis from me. Okay.
Right.
So I have done this kind of thing using my own setup. The one greatest example that I'll quote is when chess.com ran the Coinbase series of Game 10 and Game 12 rapid games last year. It hit my bullseye. I think there was no cheating in that tournament. There were a couple of things I queried during it, but I would lay good odds that it was clean. And my metric hit 50.03.
Wow.
Okay, right on the 50 bullseye for the whole tournament. And this was using this curve to interpolate game 10 plus 0 and game 10 plus 2, which was what was used in the playoffs, 2-second increment rapid. Okay. So I'm putting these results privately, but Corelli's conclusion is one that I have had Al Courant running, and that I've communicated with both chess.com and with FIDE about. So
Okay.
It sets up the question of how responsible am I to add my somewhat more private and nuanced findings. There's a some sort of question of what's private, what's publishable, what's not, that I have to deal with, and other events keeping me so busy I haven't gotten to.
Well, Ken, I'm sure you're going to do the right thing. And the comment I have several comments to make. One is that we've all, if you play online often enough, you're always going to run into a cheater, but it's not appropriate to generalize. And your statistics seem to back that up.
Right.
That generally speaking, that people don't cheat. But of course, there are cheaters, and of course, everyone has encountered someone that's obviously cheating. So what? The overall experience, it's fair. That's my first comment. The second is about Nakamura in particular. There's, to a casual fan such as myself, I would just assume that Nakamura is better at blitz, at speed chess, than he is, even though he's a great player at standard time controls. He's just better at blitz. It's the same with Carlsen trying to draw the standard time controls in order to force rapid. He's better at rapid than these other guys.
Yes.
Carlsen,
that's definite. Yes.
Yeah. And I think Nakamura, at least to the casual observer, not to the analysts such as yourself, you would think that Nakamura is just better. And I would say that feeds into players, we used to talk about Fischer fever. So when they're playing against Nakamura, they're thinking he's better than his rating. He's so good at this. So you're kind of beating yourself before you sit down. And that might explain why they underperform. They don't play as well against him.
Yes. And it's getting to the heart of that is the challenge for me. So according to on some Title Tuesdays that I've measured, according to my critical expectation measure, Nakamura's opponents face more difficult positions than average. So.
Remember, Sasha, Sarawan had a game 25 for a while. I loved that time control because it was just enough to play a strategic game, but I could always complicate the position when my opponent was a little short on time. Right. And just by complicating the position, they would go wrong. And so this is what you're saying, Ken, is what I'm hearing. They run into problems that they can't solve in that amount of time.
Right. And I'm looking to show in his part one thing, Dorian Cavelli has this nice chart just showing that for most the amount of book in games that are played in Blitz, and in most cases the amount of book in their games goes up with rating. But then at the very end, the 2800 bucket, largely consisting of Nakamura and Carlsen, goes down to the amount of book of a novice player.
Uh-huh.
So
They're complicating early. Yeah.
complicating early, playing dubious moves early,
Yeah.
and just setting problems.
Right.
So,
I would say that my reservations are about Nakamura, that he is extremely active in Blitz chess. He is streaming to extremely wide audience.
Yes.
So result of each game is extremely important. If some other Blitz players, okay, they can have a streak of winning 8, 9 games, 20 games, and lose 1, 2, and another streak or so on, and they don't care much about it. Nakamura does, because all his games are being streamed, and even a draw is a negative result for him because of his rating, because of his status as the icon of the speed chess. And even while he's young, relatively young, it's very difficult to believe that he has so much stamina, so much motivation, that he can play for days, for hours, for months, for weeks on extremely high level of almost 3000, and game after game, the position after position, without any reliance, at least once in a while, in some complicated position, just to make his life a little bit easier. So you have to accept that he is a supreme human being who is rejecting any possible help, such an engine and so on, and he is playing thousands of games a week or a month or whatever it might be, just purely through his incredible talent, without any help here and there, and achieving such incredible results and so on. It's possible. I'm not saying that it's absolutely impossible. No, it is possible. And let's hope that that's such a case. However, I'm not a strong believer in that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is circumstantial evidence. And
No, it's not evidence at all. It's my it's not evidence whatsoever.
I'm with you.
Element of evidence, and I wouldn't even use that word for next hour.
The reason why it's taking me a long time to write my article is that I feel responsibility to address the question of what is evidence.
Yeah, I'm just willing to see how far Kramnik would go with his allegations, and he's relying on very qualified help, especially lately, because he was doing a lot of allegations, against a lot of top players. But when he focused on Nakamura, that was quite unexpected, because he's going against and virtually icon of speed chess, who is at least equal or maybe even stronger than Carlsen, specifically in bullet chess.
Yeah, and so, I agree with you, and it was shocking to me to see it, and also because Kramnik's status has always been very, very high.
Yes.
So to have someone of Kramnik's status level that charge, I just really wanted Ken's opinion on that. And I'm pleased that as much as you can reveal now, that you were able to tell me to my satisfaction.
Yeah, things take time. I came from Thanksgiving. I had a paper deadline. I had hosting people. Gave an exam yesterday. Those sort of things.
Yep.
And I feel a responsibility to move carefully. I do want to do one more thing, though.
Yeah.
So let me show my public data for Niemann. So this was simply my screening results of Niemann and all the in-person tournaments where there are whispers about him cheating. And the point I made were these were all the records of Neiman since the beginning of the pandemic. And these form a very well-centered bell curve. The joint median are these two data points, 50.6.
I'm not seeing a screen yet.
Oh,
okay.
oh.
Now we do.
Here we do. Yep. Okay. So these 50.6s, joint median. So that's the point. I said, look, Neiman's results on the whole, I get the picture of normality. So naturally, I have done the same thing for Nakamura at Title Tuesdays. Now, this is only measuring the quality of the player's own moves. So the sticky wicket effect is not being covered in this column. But in terms of own moves, Nakamura Title Tuesday is just as normal. And there are times that Nakamura has won Title Tuesdays with readings down in the 44 period, where, you know, not just I, but some of his other friends who with privy access to this sort of metric, because chess.com have their own metrics, have said, yeah, we're going to send him a joke email commiserating with him and how badly he played. So if he wins with a 44, it's entirely the sticky wicket effect.
Yeah.
So just to let you know, even though, Joe, for various reasons of privacy, I'm not public with these things. I got permission to be public with my Neiman data. But yes, this has been talked about and has been looked into just because Nakamura, since with his frequency of winning Title Tuesday, is the person you want to talk about.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
Yep.
Totally agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Ken and Jim, I would like to thank you very much for today's program. It was my great pleasure to listen to you and learn a thing or two.
Yeah, very interesting.
I'm looking forward to see you next week, same place, same time.
Thanks again,
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good seeing you, Jim. Yeah, okay.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.